Hello guys, welcome back to the third part of the Diamondfire coding tutorial video. I know, it's been a long time, but some stuff happened with me, so that's why I was not able to post for a little while, but now I'm back. Um, Today we'll be going over some stuff on the select objects, processes, and more on variables. So this is some basic stuff, so let's get a join event down. Um, I think last time we did some stuff on variables. I don't 100% remember, but we don't need one there, but just mentioning that. So a select object is when you're trying to select a specific object, as the name implies, on the plot, such as the person who activated the event. You don't always need to select them immediately. Like this, if you just put a message here, um, um, it already has the default person selected. That's why you don't need to do um, a default player there, which you can access that by doing shift to right click. It'll allow you to pop up the targets menu, which is sometimes more convenient than placing a whole block here for selecting a specific person in an event. It makes code more compact, so you need less code spaces and lines depending on what you want there. So that's why if I put hi here, it would actually message me hi in chat, even though I don't have default selected. And that's why you wouldn't need to put select default on the first one. Then default entity would be if you're working with a um, something like a player damage entity event. It would be the default entity. Random player, obviously, name implies, selects a random player that's on the plot. Um, Random mob, obviously a mob, which you could spawn in by doing this spawn mob. Uh, the the egg, spawn egg of it, like zombie, would be this. Then you just need to, as it says in the parameters, chest parameters, it says a location is required. So you need to put a location here. And then that's how you'd spawn a zombie. It'll of course be on zombie since it's it'll of course be on fire since it's day, so we would catch them on fire. You can change that by, as it says right here, equipment. It says additional info at the bottom of the page here. It says equipment goes from the bottom left corner towards the right in the main hand, helmet, chest plate. So if you didn't want them to be on fire, you could give them something like a hat in this slot, since remember it says under the additional information, it goes from the bottom left corner towards the right, which would be over here, going to the right, in, as it says here, main hand, helmet. So this would be main hand, helmet, chest plate, leggings, boots. But you can, as it says, I'm not sure where it says it, but you can overlay anything. So you could put that on top of their head. You could put the boots on top of their head, along with anything else, like a zombie spawn egg, I'd assume would work as well. Yep, it does, as I suspected. But anyway, as I was saying, that's just showing how to select something. I probably shouldn't have deleted the location. Hold on. Ooh, yeah, that's right. Ooh, I should probably do something more. What my level am I on? 50, okay. 5. I forgot the keyword set. So, there. Let's just spawn a mob in, and I'll show you some stuff on how to select it. You can just set that same coordinates into your game if you want it to be mini game if you want it to be similar. It's not really a mini game, but I'm doing a tutorial. I don't know what you're doing. You can, if you're looking for a specific thing, you can just watch as much as necessary for you. So, of course, a zombie is a mob, so we'd be doing select a mob. And this is, you can do this in many ways, but I'll just be doing if its name equals whatever name we put here. Let's just do ordinary zombie. Of course, the chest parameter would be the zombie's name. And let's do, um, I think it's in here, invulnerability. Invulnerability, there we go. And then let's set that enabled. And we don't need to put selection here, but you can if you want to be exact. And especially if you're collaborating with someone, you'd especially want to put that there just so they know what you're doing. Just for readability from them, since they don't know exactly what you're thinking, because they are not you. But as this is just me on the plot, oh, it's over here. See, look, I can't damage it. The sun's not damaging it, although it still looks like it's on fire. Which it is on fire. It's just not taking the damage. You could do something like, let's make a loop then with a start process. Let's name it loop, since that's what it is. Now, we do not need to be very quick with this. So I won't do a 1/10 tick loop. This is just a 1 tick loop. Every 1 tick, it's repeating something. This is a wait block, of course. And then let's do a select. And it's okay if you're falling behind here. You can rewatch this as many times as you need. Especially if you're somewhat new to Diamondfire, you may not know exactly what I'm doing, but something like this, you can shift right click a process, and it'll send you back to the start process block here that's named loop, just like this, which of course you can do by just getting a text, typing in loop in chat, and then right-clicking the signs. And then you do a select zombie, and then let's just do an entity action, which of course, if you didn't know, player actions you do to players, entity actions you do to entities, which include the zombies, armor stands, stuff like that. So as I did, I set it to invulnerable. Let's just do set fire ticks. I think that's actually statistics. Yep, set fire ticks. Let's do 0. And one thing I've seen in other people's plots is they tend to not do this, which is setting a none at the end of any time you're selecting anything but the default player in the event, which can be very which can mess up your code very much. You especially if you're collaborating with people, you always need to set a select to nothing at the end. Or you can even do a select default player. They basically work the same way. But just remember to do that, because like they do select all players, and then at the end of their code they'll be trying to select the default player, but they actually do select none. I'm not throwing any shade, it's just something I've observed. And obviously it would be a very easy mistake to make, because you see your code's working and you don't future proof it for for code that could happen at the after that point in time. Like, let's say on a right click event, I want to message all people something. Like, hi. I I'm sorry, I messed that up. Um, this, and then you put a select all players here, right? It'll work. It'll message all people hi. You may I obviously don't have any other players on the plot, but they'd also be getting that same message. But then let's say you want to test if the player is holding something. You want and I don't know anything. Sorry. Um, you want to test that the player is holding something, um, like this, and then you want to message them farming. Well, I do believe that this would message anybody that farming, um, and I think as long as anybody on the plot is holding this item, whatever's in the chest for whatever you put in the chest, it'll message them. It'll check for everybody. Um, and of course, your code's working where it's messaging hi, but now the other person's code isn't working properly. So that's why you'd always want to select nothing after. And even you could fall into that trap if you just forget that you have something else selected earlier in the code. I don't know if I've made that exact mistake. I probably have. Because, of course, it would be a very easy mistake to make. Um, selecting something does not just affect the block after it, but any code following it until you select something else. Or if you did a shift right click and selected the default, I do believe it would only message the default player now because you have default uh, specifically selected on the sign. Yeah. So let's see, we were going to talk about processes, which I know we've already talked about functions, and they are very similar. The only difference being, well, function processes have many different parameters here that you can add to it, like what you do with local variables, which I don't think we've talked about, but I'll briefly touch upon them just in case we haven't. If we have, then it's just a review, and you could even skip that part. And of course, the targets that are in it, there is no chest on functions. And the other difference is that code will continue running after the process is called, which is why, even though it keeps running this code here over and over, it's a loop. Any code that's after this will keep running over and over again. It still continues to run the code after here. Like, let's say it's a function, name it loop, but then I'll also have to set this to it, loop, and then um, I think I'm actually going to get a nesting error here. Let me just see. I just typed in random stuff. No, I didn't get a nesting error. Maybe because I have the wait here. It'll probably be a nesting error if I didn't. But as you saw, it didn't say Asia or whatever I typed in the chest. Sometimes when testing something, I'll just type in random stuff like that, just on the thing, just because it doesn't really matter what you put. Um, of course, and if I put something in here like hello, it will run that over and over again, but it wouldn't do this code here because it immediately calls this function back and stops reading the code after here until the code after the function happens, but it is called in the function, so it acts like this code isn't even here. Um, which, it makes sense. That's actually how functions work in basically every other coding language. We're just lucky we have processes in this. Um, let's see. I said we were going to talk about select objects, which I think I talked about. Um, uh, I think I talked about them, but of course you can select all the players, all mobs, all entities, which would include armor stands. Well, I don't think armor stands are mobs. Last spawned mob, obviously, the mob that was spawned last. Uh, and last spawned entity. Like, the most recently spawned mob or entity killer, of course, would be the person who killed someone in a kill-related event. Damager, and the person who damaged the person who shot the projectile, which is pretty cool. Like the arrow, um, you can select an arrow or a snowball or egg, I think, or the other two you can do. The victim would be in a kill or damage-related event where um, it was the person that was damaged, the person that was killed. There's you can select people by their names, mobs by their names, or entities by their names. Which, of course, when I put the text in here, ordinary zombie, that was the zombie's name. I was setting their name, which it says right here you can do, which it has the text star. Um, and that's why it says optional after the word items there. Optional means that you don't have to set the mob's health, name, any potion effect on them, or any item, but you do have to set the location it'll spawn at and the egg, which is the mob's type. I've heard someone who thought that that meant you don't have to give any chest parameters, but it does say that. But by saying that, it still says that some parameters are required, but some are not. Um, Now, as I said, we're going to do a brief overview of variables. There's three types of variables, which is a game variable, a saved variable, or a local variable. That's why it says game here. I shift right click, it becomes a saved variable. I shift right click, it's a local variable. And then, of course, you can type in a name, like variable. Now, one thing I've also seen is people do percent variable. This is a habit I would immediately break if you know you do it, because I know this does not happen a lot, but I've seen someone who did percent player count or something like that. You may be like, well, there's nothing, well, something like this, percent player count, and you may say there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a variable's name, but think about how there are identifiers in this. Targets, I sometimes call them identifiers. Percent default is the default player, damager, the damager in the event, the killer, shooter, person who killed someone, person who shot the projectile, the victim, all that stuff. Well, percent player is a identifier. I don't think it talks about it in the reference book. It might. See, it doesn't. Yeah. But that is just whatever person is currently selected. For instance, if you had the killer selected, I think percent killer would be, I think when you did percent player, it would select um, the killer. I don't really use percent player, but I don't use percent player. I typically use a specific identifier. But the difference with doing this is every person on the plot would have a different percent player count. And if that's what you want, then use that. But um, if you're working and you just name it something like player count with a space here, you'd have every person on the plot would share that one variable, which is what that person in this example wanted, but instead they did percent player count. So now it's the same. Now everybody has different versions of that. And if that's what you want, great. Then add the percent in front of it. But if you want the different, but if you want everybody to share it, just don't include any percent inside of the variable's name. I know it was a bit of a confusing explanation, but I think it'll hopefully get the point across. Here is just think about this. If you want everybody to share the variable, don't have a percent sign in its name. If you do want, if you do not want people to share the variable, add a percent sign and then do default percent killer. Sorry, I typed that wrong. Percent damager or even percent player if you want to do that. And then you can type in the name of the variable, like variable. And I'll show that right now. Uh, there we go. Sorry, there was some lag right there. Someone's probably... Oh, I forgot to remove that right there. Look, slash plot vars. See, it named it Crota Plague variable 1. While, if I just did player variable, it would have it named player variable. Now, if someone else joined the plot, it would only have player variable. But if someone else joined the plot in this case, it would have their username variable 1. There's something to think about. Whoa, lots of plot ads there. Now I'll go back over what saved variables do. Of course, they're persistent data. Variables will be saved from when a player leaves to when they join, unless you did a var purge, which is slash plot. I think var purge. Just yep. Slash plot var purge, or you can just do it right here, purge matching variables with the names of the variables. Or there are local variables, which are saved to a single event, which means that after the event right here ends, they'd be completely erased from the plot, and they will no longer exist. Which is very useful in some cases. Of course, a process has the tag local variables, where you can create a new storage of the variables, copy the current one, or share it with the event, or the targets, which we just went over them, with the current targets, with the current selection, no targets, or for every person in the selection. I think that is pretty self-explanatory. But sometime in some future tutorial, we'll probably go more in depth on it. I'll talk about controls some right here, and then I'll probably end the video. Of course, wait, it waits for one event going through a specific amount of time, made here with ticks, which is a 20th of a second. Any amount of seconds, which everybody knows what seconds is, and everybody knows what minutes are. A return would return to the call function block, which would be right here. So let's say I called a loop and I break this. It's immediate. A return is always at the end of your code. But let's say I return right here, then do a wait, and then send a message. It will not send me the message. That weird garble of stuff. See, it did not send the message because it immediately returned right here and went back to here, which I can do by returned. See, it said returned, but it did not say this garble of nonsense. There is endthread, which means no code will run after this is called. Well, I don't even think it'll say returned. Yep, see, it didn't say returned because it was killed right here. Um, and then there's the skip iteration, which would be in repeats, which we haven't went over, and stop repeating, which is also for a repeat block, which we have not went over yet. Waits aren't very needed until working with loops, which is something I've not talked about here. You can't just put a loop block right here. It'll give you a lag slayer message because you looped it too much. You need a wait block. It even gives you this. You need a wait block for it to repeat. It for a loop, it needs a wait for every 10th repetition of something, or it'll stop your code from running because it doesn't like you using up that much CPU. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you did like it, make sure to leave a like on the video, and I will see you later.